It's a very beautiful morning, and this is one of those moments that we have to create the awareness by bringing something that is quite trendy, especially during the long vacation where the pupils are now home, waiting for the next session. My name is Joseph Young. I'm glad to welcome you to this session where we have to enlighten you, educate you, and inform you all together. Now, female genital mutilation is one menace that has refused to go, despite the talks, despite the campaigns that several bodies, several organizations have put in place to campaign against that practice. However, we would not stop until we see that if it's not completely eradicated, it should be reduced to the barest minimum. I had joining me this morning on set Harriet Bassey. Harriet Bassey is a facilitator and child safeguarding officer from the Girls Power Initiative. Harriet, good morning. So good to have you join us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being here.
And we also have Honorable Eken Edet. He is immediate past special assistant to the governor on community matters. Again, so good to have you join us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Indeed, having the duo of a man from the community and a facilitator and child safeguarding officer on this discourse today on against female genital mutilation is one thing that I feel very satisfied, because our discourse this morning would help to bring sanity in our community and also help our children to be properly safeguarded. Let me start with you, Harriet Bassey, as a facilitator within the Girls Fair. What can we say is female genital mutilation is?
Okay, female genital mutilation, there are different terms. You can call it female cutting or female circumcision. These are actually procedures that involve partial or total removal of a female external genitalia or injuries done to any female genital organs for non-medical reasons.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's actually a harmful traditional practices, which something has to be done to actually address it.
Absolutely. We would be coming there. So let me also hear from the immediate past Special Assistant to the Governor, Community Matters. Honorable King, let's look at female genital mutilation. What is really the issue about female genital mutilation? How did we get there? How did we even get in the first place?
Well, as we know, this is a very prevalent issue that has been very predominant in the African continent, and it dates back over 2,000 years in history. And these are the things that has been handed down by generations, and it's difficult to wake up at the eve of civilization to end this practice. And as we know, medically, this practice have no health benefits. Rather, it endangers the lives of young girls and people who practice them. So definitely, it's something that should be really looked into to see how this practice can be totally eliminated from our system.
Great, great. Okay, Harriet, let's look at, because you have more robust engagement with the girls. Let's look at the girls.
Okay.
What are the harmful, what are those disadvantages? Yes, that's the word. Because I'm sure you've had interactions with some of those girls. What have been those things we could term as disadvantages that this practice brings to the girl child?
Okay, there are a whole lot of disadvantage. Though negatively, to look at what female genital mutilation, one of the great factors which a lot of persons used to propagate and promote issue of female genital mutilation lies on the cultural factor, the cultural belief system. So a lot of people hold on to this ideology that it's part of their social norms. Their great-grandparents have been doing it, so we have to continue. But research have showed for over years that indeed there are no benefits, there are no health benefits on female genital mutilation, rather their health implications. And most of these health implications cut across immediate effects, like you tend to see the victim encounter excessive bleeding, like hemorrhage. There's also tendency of shock. There's also cases where an individual, there's contraction of infection through the instruments or equipment being used, because most time during maybe the ceremonial process of a rite to passage of a child, where it's also one of the belief system that people have that FGM is one of the marital support, is a stage where you're trying to groom a child into entering adulthood and marriage. So within that time of the ceremony, most time the instrument being used can be used on more than 7 persons. So there's that tendency that there could be transmission of infection through blood, example like HIV, and there's also issue of psychological trauma like shock, and then also postpartum stress disorder. Sometimes the female tends to suffer from low self-esteem. Some of them, there are a whole lot of disadvantages, and it cuts across the mental health of the individual, the physical health, because most time through the struggles you tend to see the individual being injured, their swollen body parts, and then there are also other benefits that also go as far as anger. The individual is angry because most time this practice is being done at an infant stage and adolescent period before the child even gets to 15 years. So most time the consent of that child is not really taken. And globally and even internationally, FGM has been recognized as a violation of human rights issues. And it's also an issue of gender-based violence, because you tend to see issue of discrimination, issue of gender inequality. So all of these are part of what form the disadvantages when it comes to issue of female genital mutilation. And there are a whole lot of other negative effects, like the long-term effects. Sometimes there are issues about childbearing. You also tend to see a woman have difficulty engaging in sexual intercourse. So there are a whole lot of effects behind it.
Okay, great. Now, let me find out from Ken. You understand a whole lot of community issues, and some girls even pride that they were caught. So it's like a thing of a pride in the community. It shows that despite the talk, some people are still believing that it's my thing, it's my culture. So how do we still sensitize the girls and look, this is more harmful than just parading yourself with all amount of pride?
Well, in my interaction with different communities and my course of discharging my duties, I have been able to deduce some facts that these young girls have been misled because the disadvantage of whatever selfish practice has been handed out overwhelms whatever they think it stands to represent. You know, back in the days, this practice was kind of aimed at making the girls to be, what do we call it, kind of not be promiscuous and not enjoy intercourse or whatever, and preserve their virginity till marriage. And you know, the schools are on holidays and a lot of people are traveling home, and a lot of people fall victims from this, even exposed families that lives abroad. Most times they come home for holidays and the grandma gets to, you know, get these things done. And what I saw was that most of the people who did these things are predominantly not qualified health personnel. They are just traditional attendants, traditional birth attendants and all those things. So you would see young girls after the period of the fattening room thing, as it were while I was younger. I don't know if that fattening thing is still happening.
I think in some communities it still happens.
Some interior communities that should still be there, which of course is something that the government also has to look into. And you get to see that this group of girls get to feel initiated. They feel they are part of womanhood. It's something that graduates you to being a woman. And most times they would want to equilibrate it to the men. How do you feel if you were not circumcised as a man? But you see, this is entirely different because it affects the psychology of the lady, it affects the productive system and everything that goes therein. So we went through a lot of sensitization and of course a lot of brick walls to this because our chiefs, most of them that have not been fully educated and very, they have this problem of trying to understand why you should try to stop this age-long practice that has been. But so far, we have been able to achieve some level of awareness amongst our ladies. I had taken across to the village heads and most decline heads, engage with them because these are the closest people to the grassroots, the closest people to their community. So one of it was like, even if it means sending a town crier boom, 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 around anybody seen engaging in this practice, the full weight of the law would be on these persons. And we know some cities like the UK, for example, is a criminal offense to do that. You'd be locked up for a long, long time. So it's more of a call to action to our legislators who have just come in, of course, with the new energy and everything, to also look into this and see how we can end this prevalence from our communities forever.
Absolutely. Okay, Harriet, there's a point he raised, and I had written it down to ask you. I know I need to ask because you are a lady. Okay. One of those reasons they also give for FGM is it stops promiscuity. Yeah. Does that really work?
Really, for me, there's really no proof. There's no research to actually back up that. And we all know that most time people propagate information due to ignorance, sometimes due to non-access to accurate information. Because for goodness sake, you've seen a lot of some young girls who they have actually not been circumcised, but they are promiscuous. So for me, I see the issue of promiscuity as something of the mind. You choose either to become promiscuous or not. And there's really no connectivity to has relating to female genital mutilation. I know it's also one of the strongest factors because people see that by the time a young girl is being circumcised, the sexuality is going to be controlled. But there's really no clear fact to back up that. There's really no clear fact. And sometimes it's just the promiscuity can come from, you can blame some parents because they say train up a child in the way he or she will go, and when he's grown up, he will not depart from it. You know, as children, most time what they see their older adults who are supposed to be like agent of change doing, they copy it. And sometimes while they copy that promiscuity attitude behavior, they do it ignorantly. So sometimes from the home, there is a blame factor because maybe you didn't train the child well, and it really has nothing to do with the child clitoris being cut off so that the girl child will not become promiscuous. There's really no connectivity to it.
Great. Now, King, let me look at another aspect. I'm sure you may have been confronted with this. Most of these ladies or women that handle the court, it's their own way of generating funds for themselves. So it's an economy built around this practice. So, but how can we, shift the attention from seeing that as a bricks business to, something else? Because some of them will feel, instead of them losing their businesses, they'll still go into the practice, maybe illegally. So how can we try to strike a balance with this?
Legislation. And enforcement of this legislation too. Even the traditional birth attendants and those people who do those TBM practices, traditional healers and all those things, they come under an umbrella. They have now been identified and duly registered. Now, that body can be sensitized.
Okay.
If you try reaching out to them individually, it might be a bit difficult because of the economic constraints and all that. But if they are targeted as a group and put together and talked to, and also made to know the legal implications of engaging into this practice, if this is enforced, I think it's going to send a lot of messages down to even those who are not part of the organization. They would be able to know that if they do this, this is what the law says. Now, the law overrides whatever tradition is coming from.
Exactly.
So I think more legislations and more attention should be focused on the, well, of course, the wife of His Excellency, the Governor of Cross River State, also has that as part of her framework in the women and child development strategies mapped out in her agenda. So definitely having her weight thrown in there at that angle, and having the members of a different House of Assembly legislate and back this up is already a law.
Yeah.
But if it's been called upon again and the voices are stronger and the awareness gets to even the parents, because come on, I have to be aware of what you're doing to my child, to my girl child, and as a learned young man, you will not do that to my child, because I know fully well the health implication this would pose. Even when I am long dead and gone, the child is going to still face that trauma, that depression and all those factors that comes with this act. So definitely, with the proper legislation, with the proper enactment of these laws, with the proper follow-up, this would be a thing of the past. We'd just be reading them in books that it once happened.
Great, great. Okay, Harriet, let me, because you belong to an organization that has lasted so far for more than 25 years.
Yeah.
At least the Girls Power Initiative is one group that has been able to mold a lot of young women into great adults. Let's look at, in fighting female genital mutilation, what should be the role of the non-governmental organizations and the religious centers?
Okay, I believe that the non-governmental organization have a role to play. And first and foremost, I really want to congratulate and appreciate GPI for doing great work as it relates to issues like this, because we have a structured curriculum, and as part of our safe space session discussion with the girls, we try to expose them. I remember when I wasn't even a member of GPI, though I'm a graduate from the program, I like even telling my mom, I knew some of my cousins who had actually undergone those practices. So I was always telling my mom, I want to finish secondary school so that during holiday I will just go and be circumcised. But I thank God that my path crosses GPI timely. That was, I think, my SS2, SS3. I got to discover that there is an organization molding young people with good values and personal life empowerment skills. And it was actually there that I went and gain exposure, because I remember my late mom said, sometimes she's telling us stories, she'll be like, some women in the village are oftentimes mocked if they are not circumcised, and sometimes they'll so isolate that woman or the young lady that is not circumcised to stay away from them, that you're not a grown-up adult. So I used to almost want to I want to also see myself undergoing this, but thank God for GPI. When I was made exposed to information, that's why I say that information is the key. Knowledge, they say, is what is power, is light. Because assuming if I was still acting on that ignorant angle, I don't know what would have become of me. But most time I remember the moments, I'll be appreciating GPI for that available information that was given to me. So I want to say that what most NGOs should do, like what GPI is doing, they should continue either through activity, organizing activity that would draw young people, community gatekeepers, especially the chiefs, the women leader in different group, even the pastors in different churches. NGOs should have activity that targets, because these are great influencers in different places, and some young people also see this category of people like significant figure in their life. So whatever they say to them, they tend to follow, they tend to obey them. So when NGOs come together to organize educational program that speak against issue of the negative impact of FGM, I believe so far there is going to be a shift in knowledge gain, and even the mindset reorientation will come in. And then for the religious body, they can also incorporate it into their teaching in the church. And of course, we can recall in those days, sexuality education was really a taboo, that you don't talk about relationship, you don't talk about issue of young people dating and all of that. The pastor will always stand on the pulpit, talk about the issue of immorality. But nowadays, you see a lot of churches have single and married program where they talk about the issue of sexuality, issue of relationship. So issues like this can also be embedded into some, maybe the Sunday school session manual. It can be embedded in the manual where most of these young people are exposed to this information. And at the end of the day, to guide their choices and decision in life. And then NGO too, like we said, they can also partner with the government to actually support implementation of existing laws, because there exists a lot of laws that protect the female child against issue of female genital mutilation, like the Violence Against Person Prohibition Act is one of the law. Even the Child Rights Act also talk against issue of female genital mutilation. So NGO can come together with the government, carry out advocacy to see to the implementation of all of these laws. And then when they see to advocacy and implementation, you see that at the end of the day, it's going to serve as a deterrent to other promoters who carry out such practices.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Aaron. And just for us to take our very last shot because of time. Now, this is going to be a long vacation for pupils, and this is about the time we see this practice, prevail the more. King, in 30 seconds, you and Aaron, I want to hear your message to parents, your message to the government of the state as regards putting an end to female genital mutilation, especially more awareness this season.
Dear parents, female genital mutilation does not or will not in any way protect your child against what you are trying to protect her from. As they are coming home for holidays, I would like to implore you or send them to learn skills. Send them to learn musical instruments. Send them to attend activities that would boost their creative skills and give back to the society. This is not the time to go back to the village to meet grandma to do the age-long practice. This is the time that you have to go back to school knowing how to sew, knowing how to make hair, knowing how to bake cake, knowing how to do your makeover. Take time to teach your kids sex education. Mutilating their genitals in any way will not stop them from what you didn't teach them or what you didn't advise them not to do. Take time, tell them this is what happens if you do this. Now, most of this practice happened when these kids were at their infant stage, and they don't even know what happened to them. Most of them don't even know they were mutilated. They are just living, going through the struggles of the disadvantage of this practice. So, this has to stop. This is the 21st century, and there's so much awareness, there's so much to know. Those things that affected our grandparents that we thought the devil were attacking them each time, they were getting into shock, they were getting into convulsion, and we say a ghost has slapped them. No. These things are as a result of what you parents and what your parents and the ones before them had done. So please, let's not subject our kids, our children, our female children to this. Give them the proper sexual orientation they are supposed to have. Tell them what is right. You yourself we are at the jet age, your phones are there. Browse, take out these informations. Tell them, even if you don't have the opportunity to be involved with the GPI, which I would love to encourage you and the young girl child out there to be part of. So you learn more about your bodies, you learn more about your changes as you evolve into adulthood, as you evolve into a full-blown woman. So please, at this juncture, I would love our parents, religious leaders, our government also to key strategically into this, to key into other existing programs that has been there, to see how this could be given a stronger momentum, a stronger voice, so that it would sink into the ears of everyone. Let this be translated into different languages across the nooks and crannies of Cross River State, so that when we are taking the statistics again, at least after the tenure of His Excellency Senator Prince Bassey Otu, we would see that this practice, even at the remotest of village, has completely dropped.
All right, thank you very much. Arit, let's hear from you. Very
Okay,
briefly too.
for me, parents, I want to advise that, I want to encourage that you should be a watchdog over your children, be that advocate, not just for your children. And that's why we keep emphasizing knowledge is good. Don't keep holding on to olden days ideology is our culture, is our thing. Know that you should be able to know that the people form the culture and not the culture that actually form itself for us. So a lot can be changed. We can actually, and that's why we say that culture is dynamic. It differs in different places. So let's begin to shift our mindsets by trying to promote issue of female genital mutilation. And then for the government, I want to also encourage that there should be implementation of most of these existing laws and policies that actually speak against issue of female genital mutilation. And most time when individual violates most of this right to bodily integrity of young people, they should be sanctioned. The right penalty should be duly followed, so that at the end of the day, it's going to be like a deterrent to other persons who may want to dive into that process.
Thank you so very much. It's been a very robust and great conversation there. Arit Bassey, facilitator and child safeguarding officer from the Girls Power Initiative GPI. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And not forgetting Honorable Ekeng Edet, a former special assistant to the governor on community matters. Thank you, Ekeng, for your time on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And this is where we are bringing the show to an end. I'm sure you have been enlightened, and don't just get the message for yourself. Let's spread the message out. If you truly love these children, let's use this period and beyond to let the world know that, look, mutilating them is not the solution. We'll be back some other time, and indeed with better statistics that the menace has greatly reduced in Calabar and Cross River State at large. My name is Joseph Ian. Enjoy the rest of our programs. Good morning.
Thank you.